Hey guys, in this episode I'm going to talk about how to get started in property investing in 2026. So many of you have reached out to me in the Facebook group Australian Property Mastery with PK asking, PK, how do we actually get started? Can you just break it down to us? We're very new, we don't know all the fancy terms, we just want it in plain English so that we can become comfortable with starting this journey. So that's what I'm going to do over the next 10 minutes. So I feel that the first thing you need to do when starting in property investment is understand your goals. That sounds very fluffy and I'm going to move on from it very quickly, but it is very important to understand your goals. For example, in 10 years, or let's say 20 years, what do you want to achieve from property investing? Everyone says, I want to get filthy rich, or I want to get more freedom, or I want to become more wealthier, or I want to become have more passive income so I don't have to work as much. Different people have different goals, but those goals will determine what your strategy would be. Maybe your strategy is to buy high growth properties and you don't really care about passive income, you don't really care about cash flow, you just want to see your net wealth go up and up and up. For other people, net wealth might be a vanity metric because you're thinking, I can't retire on net wealth, I need passive income. Passive income is income that you get every month in your bank from an income source where you don't have to work for it. So if you retire tomorrow, then how many years can you survive without actually having to actively work? Now that's called passive income. And so different people will have a different combination of goals, and that determines your strategy and in turn what types of properties you would buy. There's all sorts of properties you can buy in Australia: expensive, cheap, high yield, low yield, ones where you can add value and manufacture growth or manufacture equity, like doing a small renovation, or ones where you don't have to do that, ones with a granny flat out back or potential for a granny flat where you can build an auxiliary dwelling and get additional cash flow. But some people may not want that. There's like 20, 30, 40 different strategies, different nuances. So the first thing is actually to understand, what do I want to achieve? I know it's tough and everyone just wants to find the next boom location, but this is the step number one. Step two is to then create that strategy. Okay, you need to sit down with a financial model, not a financial planner. Financial planner or financial advisor, they're not most often legally allowed to tell you what to do in the property sphere. They're not regulated in the property sphere, so they'll always recommend you buy stocks or ETFs or stuff like that. So don't go to a financial planner. You need to do this yourself in terms of, okay, in order to achieve that goal, how many properties do I need to buy? What should their yields be? What should the cash flow outcome be? What price points do I need to buy at? What is my total borrowing capacity? You know, can I buy 4 properties at $500,000? And if I can't, because I don't earn enough money and the bank won't give me enough of a loan, then what entity structures do I need to buy it under? For example, I might be able to buy 2 properties at $500K and own my own name, and maybe another $500K property in my wife's name. But if I put these in a company structure, it might be different for me because I already am a business owner. Or if I put it in a trust structure and these properties start paying for themselves over time, maybe I can buy 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 and therefore have a higher borrowing capacity than if I had bought it in my own name. So this long-term portfolio strategy, which by the way cannot be achieved by just going to a buyer's agent, they're just caring about a transaction, getting paid 15 to 25K to buy you a property. They're not caring about these strategic thought processes, even though they do have a strategy call with you. That's just a sales call, really. No, we all do it. So this is very important. So how do you do this long-term strategy? You need to be the captain of your ship, the pilot of your own plane. You need to know enough about the plane, enough about the ship to be able to manage your crew. Okay, so that means your crew is your mortgage broker and your accountant. Get these people together in a virtual room over Zoom or a phone call multiple times and hash this strategy out. You need to be able to ask the right questions, lead them in the right direction, be educated enough to find the right people in the first place, because 90% of accountants won't know that trust strategy that I just talked about. 90% of mortgage brokers will just try to get you a low interest rate and not actually understand that there's 35 different lenders out there, and in order for you to achieve your long-term outcome, there's a particular sequence of different banks you have to go through with different products, and whether you should go interest only or principal and interest, how long that interest only period should be, and how can you quickly extend that. These types of things you need to learn. So once you do have a proper strategy, then it comes to suburb selection. So you bring that long-term strategy, you pull it forward to a short-term strategy. Okay, for my very first property or next property, should I be buying at what budget? What yield do I need? Do I need a 4%, 5%, 6% yield? What's my risk appetite? Am I okay to go into small regional towns, or do I need to keep to large secondary cities, or do I want to stay to capital cities at the expense of yield? Do I want to be able to add value, structurally renovate, cosmetically renovate, put a granny flat in, subdivide, split, do a development? In the future, do I want my block to have the potential for development where I knock down the house and build 4 townhouses? What is your strategy? Where are you sitting on the active to passive spectrum? Okay, so we went over budget, we went over yield, we went over active to passive spectrum, and your risk appetite. How regional do you want to buy versus not? Once you've got that short-term strategy down packed, then it comes to suburb selection. You can't do suburb selection without all this other stuff. You know, doing suburb selection without all this other stuff is kind of like learning how to freestyle swim a little bit and then running like a medley, swimming a medley where you have to do breaststroke, a butterfly, freestyle and backstroke, and you're like, I only know freestyle, then I'm screwed for the remaining 3 laps. Okay, it's not going to work. You need to lay your foundations, and then suburb selection starts. Long-term strategy, short-term strategy first. Use 30 to 35 data factors to select the right suburb. Okay, then you have to select within the right suburb, the right pocket of the suburb, because within the suburb, there are some streets and some areas that will perform better than other parts of the suburb, thinking about things like bushfires risk, flood risk, where housing commission is, where the owner occupiers live, rather than those streets that are just all investors and they're not really maintained that well. Sorry about the background noise here. And coming back to suburb selection, there's all these data factors like building approvals, days on market, stock on market, how fast the incomes are increasing in that suburb compared to the state average. There's all these things that, looking at multivariate models, statistical variation, regression analysis, you can actually see what is actually directly correlated with capital growth outcomes in the short and long term. And when you have this matrix in your mind, okay, these are the factors that impact short-term growth, medium-term growth, long-term growth. Okay, what do I want? And then within that suburb, these are the factors that dictate short-term growth, medium-term, long-term growth. And then this is how that suburb fares in the city fares and the state fares in terms of how it's likely to perform over the next 5, 10, 15 years. Then you're fully educated. Then you can make an educated decision. At the suburb level, there's 30 to 35 factors. At the property or intra-suburb level, there's another 30 odd factors. So we're looking at about 60, 65 factors, but don't let it overwhelm you. You know, sometimes people spend more time picking out a dishwasher or a car or a cell phone to buy than they spend time in deciding which investment property to buy and where to buy. You think about what's the most wise choice. Where are you spending the most money? It's obviously in a property, right? It's the most expensive thing you'll buy. So once you've got that down packed, that is when you then start putting offers, you negotiate. All of that can be done remotely through the use of property managers. Use a property manager to get a property inspected. Let's say you're living in Sydney, you want to buy in regional Victoria, let's say. Okay, you'd find a local property manager just by Google or going on Rate My Agent, and then you'd ask them to inspect the properties for you. They'll do it for free, because the carrot on the stick for them is when you buy that property, you will give the management to them. Therefore, you can ask them to inspect properties. So you're not only using the quantitative and qualitative data that I've already talked about, you're getting that boots on the ground intel. They'll say, yeah, this street, although it seems fine on Google Maps, actually this is a notorious street. People do like burnouts here, you don't want to go there. And then they'll go into the property and say, yeah, look, the roof is fine, but the plumbing, it's not that fantastic, with the help of a building and pest inspector. By the way, a building and pest inspector will help you with plumbing, drainage, roof, the electrical side of things as well. They can say, look, it's a 40-year-old house, you might want to get an electrician in. All these due diligence items that you and I couldn't do even if we lived there. Like, to be honest, let's be honest, I'm not an electrician, I'm not a plumber, I'm not a roofer, I'm not a property manager. Better to outsource these things to the people who actually can do them. Not to be confused with a buyer's agent who act as the middleman. Why not pick up the phone and make these 3 calls yourself? Why pay a buyer's agent $15,000 to $25,000 to pick up the phone and make these 3 calls for you? You can do it yourself, completely remotely, interstate. Included the suburb analysis, because that's what they're doing as well. They're doing it on desktop anyway, both the quant and the qualitative analysis. So why not do that at home once you know how? Research how to do it. Someone posted on a Facebook group the other day, if I can't do PK's course, how should I do all this? And I very honestly replied, if you can't afford my course, okay, then spend 40, 50, 60 hours on YouTube consuming content, not just from me, but from other people. Consume podcasts, maybe another 20 hours, and then start the process of trial and error. You start to value properties, get a sense of how to value properties, because you don't want to formally learn, so you'll have to do it by trial and error. You might overpay on the first property, but you'll learn, and therefore you'll pay better on the second property. If you don't want to learn in a formal way through me, then you can do it like this. You might need to learn through trial and error. You might need to call agents a lot. It might take you, 70, 80, 90 hours, but you can do it yourself. Of course, the Property Investment Accelerator fast tracks this, and within 3 to 5 hours a week over 1 or 2 months, that's all you need to both do the course and also implement it within that time frame. Within a couple of months at the latest, if you do things correctly, you'll have a property. But not everyone wants to do a course. You can do it yourself as well. There's so much free information out there. Of course, things like the coefficients that I teach you about how each data factor relates to capital growth, what is the correlation between them, the importance of each factor, how flexible we are on each factor. For example, maybe there's too many renters in a suburb, but if there are too many renters, let's say over 40-50%, but the vacancy rate has been less than 1% for the last 3-4 years, then that cancels out the fact that there is too many renters. Things like this you won't get because you haven't done the course, you're just relying on free information. But nonetheless, I'm not a person to say you can't buy a good property without me. You can. Thousands of people have done it for dozens of years and for decades in the past in Australia. You can do it. But my course is more for people who just want laser precision. They want speed and expediency without making any mistakes through trial and error. We're coming back to the process of how to buy your first property. Then you put in offers, you get an offer accepted, you exchange all the paperwork. All that is done through email. You don't actually have to go in to sign anything anywhere. And then before settlement, you get your keys through your property manager, and of course they hang on to the keys and they find a tenant for you. And they can find a tenant pretty easily if you've done the suburb selection properly. There's no need to worry about things like tenants trashing the place or long vacancies. Once again, that's all a product of selecting the right property, doing your due diligence and selecting the right suburb. And then once you've got your tenants in, then you just lay back. I mean, not quite, but you normally spend, like, I've got 13 properties, or so, I think, 13, 14 properties. And I spend like 2 hours a month managing them. Well, I really just manage the managers, which is the property managers. So that's what you'll be doing. One properties take you like less than half an hour a month, and you just gotta stay on top of the maintenance with which the property manager does for you anyway. So don't be scared if you're new to property investment. Anyone can do it. It's just a matter of going through it step by step. You need a mortgage broker, you need a accountant, you need a conveyancer, the solicitor to handle the legal side of things, you need a building and pest inspector, you need a property manager, and then after you settle the property, you need a quantity surveyor who goes in and sees how much depreciation is left in that property so that you can offset your tax. Everyone wants to do that. So guys, this episode's going on a little bit, but those are the main steps. Of course, in the course, I give you all those people, and I also teach you how to find all those people yourself so that you can learn and also be spoon-fed to some extent. But you can find these people yourself as well, once again, through trial and error. There are so many people on YouTube, on podcasts, different forums, Facebook forums, etc., good professionals that you can find yourself. Do not hire a buyer's agent simply because they're giving all these people to you. The mistake in doing so is that sometimes they will all be working in the same company, so there's lots of kickbacks and dodgy incentive structures where people are getting paid to refer and stuff, and they're not actually good. And the other thing is sometimes when a buyer's agent is giving the entire team to you and you have to use them, or at least you're encouraged to use them, is that there's no proper due diligence between the professionals. For example, the conveyancer is not really incentivized to say no to a deal because it has some negative easement at the back of it, because they're really in cahoots with the buyer's agent. And so there's no constructive friction between the different professionals. You really want the different professionals to try pick apart the deal. Why shouldn't I buy this? Why should I buy this? What are the pros and cons? You don't want to be transacting in an echo chamber where everyone is saying do the same thing, just buy the property, because that's how they'll get paid from you. Anyway, coming back to how you buy your first property in Australia, be open to all 15,000 suburbs and drill down per your strategy, per suburb selection. And then ultimately per property selection. Everything can be done remotely. And I think the thing that really keeps people a bit fearful is that even when they do find the right property, let's say it's on real estate domain or off-market deals, under-market deals, you can do yourself as well. I teach you how to do it, but once again, it's not like everyone who's ever got off-market deals has done my course. You can get off-market deals yourself. You just call a lot of real estate agents within a week or two, they'll start sending you off-market deals. Of course, I give you the scripts and the contacts and make it much more easier. You can do it yourself. I've done other episodes on how to do it yourself if you use some keywords, off-market discounts on YouTube or Spotify or somewhere like that, and put my name in alongside it. But all this stuff can be done remotely, and I think that's the beauty of it all. So go off and do it. The thing that I was saying before people are fearful of is when they have found a deal, they just second guess themselves, they triple guess themselves, they're not actually confident in actually signing on the contract, because they're like, oh gosh, what if I'm making a huge mistake? Oh gosh, what if I've done the suburb selection wrong? Oh gosh, what if there's something about this property that is wrong and I don't know about it? And I think that's where this concept of you don't know what you don't know comes into play. So absolutely, you can do it for free. Like I said, spend up to 100 hours researching. By that time, you'll probably, hopefully, build a lot of confidence. For, of course, people who use buyer's agents and then are uneducated to manage the buyer's agent, they don't know any better either. They're blindly trusting the buyer's agent, who may or may not have their best interest at heart, or maybe most likely will have their own business interest at heart. Remember, no one cares about your money as much as you do. And of course, people in the course also experience this fear. They're newbies as well, although formally educated with systems, with structure, with data. They also have this fear, but the advantage they have is they can just send me the deals and say, PK, what do you think about this? Here's the data. Am I interpreting it correctly? Have I missed anything? And a lot of times I'm happy to say, yeah, no, you've actually missed something. You've completely ignored the fact that this is in a low-level flood zone, or you've ignored the fact that this is a particular type of easement right next to it, or you've ignored the fact that I'm just making something up, that the carport is not council certified. There's 100 different things that can happen like this, right? And so therefore they're leaning on someone like me, my humble self, someone who's got almost 4,000 property transactions of experience, not my own deals, by the way, the total number of properties that clients have bought. And so therefore you're overcoming this hurdle of you don't know what you don't know. But once again, if you have bravado, if you have confidence, you don't necessarily need me if you know exactly what you're looking for and you're confident to pull the trigger. So coming back to the title of this episode, how to start property investing in 2026, let's say. And those are the steps: long-term strategy, short-term strategy, suburb selection, property selection, then you're negotiating, you're putting in offers, finding a property manager to start finding a tenant for you. All this comes more and more apparent. Of course, there's lots of more micro steps, and I'd need to do hours long video and explain exactly what to do and not to do, and give you the templates and scripts and the data and the data system and how to analyze 15,000 suburbs quickly without making mistakes. But I can't do that in a YouTube episode. That's what the course is for. But one thing I did fail to mention to you is valuation. Very important to value the property correctly as well. So you go on the sold section of Domain or realestate.com and you see what similar properties with similar layout, similar age, similar bedroom number, similar block size, what they have sold for in the recent history, and therefore you find 9 comparables and see where yours stacks up. Don't rely on these online valuation tools from like banks or like CoreLogic or free or paid. They're all wrong. The best thing is to do it yourself, and it's pretty quick and easy, to be honest. Yeah, it's very easy just to go in the sold section and you see literally what properties are sold at. And this is what builds your knowledge as well about the area, about the pocket, the neighborhood, and the property. By not doing this research, I know that I'm guilty of it too sometimes. You're just like, I just want to buy a property. I don't want to do all this stuff. Like, seems like really intimidating, seems like I'm smothered by all this extra work. But once again, coming back to the initial point, if you're like a car enthusiast like me, you're probably spending dozens of hours selecting the right vehicle, the right model, the make before you buy a car. Try to have passion in property as well, because yes, a car is enjoyable, but the right properties bought in the right structure, with the right plan, with the right execution, can give you your freedom back. You don't have to work for the rest of your life. You can build let's say 100K plus minus passive income, net passive income, where you can then choose to do whatever you want to do. Like, you buy your freedom back. That's literally what property investing is. You can do what you want, when you want, with whomever you want. And I think that is the foundation of building happiness. Freedom does not bring you happiness. It's what you do with that freedom that brings you happiness. But unless you have that freedom in the first place, then maybe a school of thought says that whatever happiness you have is contrived, it's limited, and you're just making it work, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that's going more too philosophical. If there's anything that I've missed here on how to get started in property investing in 2026, please put it in the comments. I'll answer it. Give it a like, hit the subscribe button. I'm just trying to think if I missed anything important. I probably have, because I haven't scripted this. I was here, I had some spare time while my son was practicing in his soccer session, and I thought, let me do this episode. I really like doing these episodes because I feel that I'm really helping you guys. A lot of you message me every single week saying, PK, I bought property. I've been following you for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or however long it is, 7 years. I haven't done your course, but I bought a property anyway. Thank you so much for all the content you produce. And that really, that really puts a smile on my face. Of course, I don't know if their property is good or bad or something in the middle, but at least they've taken action. Okay, but why not be one of these people who doesn't take chances, doesn't allow any uncertainty to creep in, doesn't put anything up for grabs? Why not have laser precision and get educated formally? It's not for everyone, I get that, but I really do encourage you, because this is the most expensive thing that you'll buy, property, and if you get it right, it can change your life truly, and your family's life. Even if you're not passionate about it, maybe think about it as a service to your husband, your wife, your kids. Okay, maybe I'm not so passionate about learning property and investing in real estate, but this will allow my wife to stop working, or this will allow me to reduce my hours, or this will allow me to pay for the things that I really want to pay for, sports or extracurricular things, or a better opportunity, better education for my kids. Even if you're not passionate about it, sometimes if we have a higher goal, a greater good, something that's bigger than ourselves, that becomes our driving force. Do you know what I mean? And therefore we muster up the energy and actually do it. So think about it in that way, how proud your kids will be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, when you have all this wealth and they can say to their friends or colleagues at that time, or family members, yeah, I'm really proud of my mom, or really proud of my dad. We have what we have is because they really busted their gut, they hustled, and they really worked hard and got our family into this position. That I know for myself, that's been one of the greatest joys of life, of being able to provide for my son in that way, give him things that I didn't have growing up. And so that's an opportunity that everyone has available to them, and I'm really imploring you to seriously consider it. Anyway, I've gone on too much. Hit the subscribe button and give it a like, but share this, maybe share it with your wife or a husband. I know so many of you, or spouse, it's like one of you wants to invest in real estate, the other one doesn't. Maybe this episode will help the other person kind of just see things without a marketing and sales angle, see things as they are, build some confidence to at least take the next step. That next step doesn't have to be signing a contract. That next step might just be, let's sit down, let's make an hour, 2 hours dedicated time this weekend or tonight after the kids are asleep to watch, more of PK's free episodes or videos or podcasts, or let's scroll through his Facebook group with his 70,000 people and see what people are saying. Let's get amongst the discussion and ask questions, answer questions. Just more marinating yourself in the right type of content will inspire you to take the next action. And that's what it really is. It's like, oh my God, can I really be financially free? That seems so unattainable. But what can you do in the next day? What can you do in the next 2 days? What can you do in the next 7 days? Okay, to bridge that gap. Don't worry about buying a property just yet. What can you do in the next week? What can you do in the next hour so that you're closer to your goal, as opposed to being stuck, or at worst, even farther or further away from your goal? All right, so I kind of blended a bit of psychology, behavioral economics, and tactics into this episode, but I think that's what most people need. And I think what most people need is just a sort of a normal person having a normal conversation with them about a topic like property investment, because everyone's trying to sell you something, everyone's got an agenda, everyone's trying to make money, everyone's trying to make money off you. It's really hard to know who to trust. I mean, I've been there as well, right? Made a lot of mistakes, etc. So I'm just trying to be real with you, as if we're friends, we're just talking over a coffee or something like that. But yeah, please let me know any comments, any questions, put them in the comments below in the comment section. I'll also leave a link below to that Facebook group I just referred to, Australian Property Mastery with PK. 70,000 people there. I've helped so many of them, so many have helped each other as well, which is the beauty in a community. Join that, and also I'll leave a link below to my podcast, Oz Property Mastery with PK. That's on Spotify and like all the platforms. My name's PK. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you share this. All right, thanks guys. Catch you later. See ya.